Sally, I wanted to ask about the technology in the office and how the equipment and your use of different office supplies, or not supplies, but equipment changed over the years.
It went from the very beginning to the most updated materials, but every time the university changed their system, it meant all of us had to have new equipment, and it was never they never worked the same. And I probably would admit that I'm not very technologically on top of everything. It was difficult every time we changed a system.
But you started with electric typewriters.
Yes, we did.
With the ball type or just the regular IBM?
I had one with the ball.
Okay.
I still have one of those that I owned myself in the basement at home. So if you want another typewriter, Barry, I've got one.
Well, what about the computer systems? Did they go into PCs in the 90s or 80s and then moved up to?
You know, I don't know that I can tell you exactly what they were called, but I remember first we had something where that had a paper slot that we put in with the punch holes.
Punch cards.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I'm not even sure what they called that, but it was that was not a fun time really to learn all that.
So did they bring in technicians to help with?
Yes, they did, and they were always on call if you needed help, but you still had to learn it yourself.
And you had to back up everything once you're on computers because you didn't have necessarily hard copy.
Right. But then everybody could pick up things from everybody else with a lot more ease than it had been before. So it was advantageous, certainly, to have the newer equipment, but not quite as much fun.
Now, did any of the presidents start using email or other internet?
Yes, they did, and some of them did that on their own rather than asking for help.
Private emails?
I don't know about private. I think they were all university equipment, but they knew how to do it, and they could do it themselves. So I don't remember doing any email for any president.
What about the other technological changes? You certainly had to office had to be rewired and upgraded and other things brought in, but I'm not sure what kind of equipment.
Well, I don't remember anything that was very disruptive.
Okay.
I don't recall anything, but of course I've been retired 20 years, so I'm not able to speak since 1996.
Now, when you moved back into Altgeld Hall after it had been completely remodeled, did they have an enlarged space for the president's office up on the third floor, or did you have the same?
They did, but I didn't move back. I retired from Loudon Hall.
Okay, so let's go back to President LaTourette. He was your final president, and when did he come on board, and how did he get here?
He came as provost, and he was a candidate at the same time Clyde Wingfield was a candidate. And that was very close. A lot of people wanted John LaTourette, and it came back from the board meeting in Springfield, and it had gone the other way. So when Clyde Wingfield, really his tenure was cut short because the board was not satisfied, and I don't know if we ever used the word fired, but anyway, he was to leave. And then John LaTourette came without another search committee. And then they had to get a new provost. But he just moved from one end of the building to the other. We were both in Loudon Hall on the third floor.
Okay. Now, how long did he stay?
John was here probably 9 or 10 years.
Okay. Okay. And during that time, of course, there's also a growth period of change.
Yes, and our enrollment was up to near or even above 25,000. So from the time I started, when it was like around 9,000, our largest enrollment was while John LaTourette was here.
Okay, okay.
And now it's dwindling again. Part of it, I suppose, due to state funding and the problems in the whole state of Illinois, but it's kind of sad to think that it's not holding.
Now, tell us about your decision to retire and why and when.
Well, I first thought I was going to take early retirement, and I guess my life was a little too vibrant. I couldn't decide what I was going to do, so I did stay until probably a regular retirement age. And so when I decided to retire, I told John LaTourette that people were coming to me asking me for things that were going to be in the next academic year, and I said, I can't. If you're not going to announce that I'm retiring, I feel like I need to know something to tell them. So finally he decided to do that. He told his cabinet that I was going to retire. And I was of retirement age, and I just decided that it was a good time to retire.
What year was that?
1996.
You put in how many years there?
32 years.
32 years.
And so when I left, I said, after 32 years, I said, I'm in the same position I was in when you hired me, and if I can't have a raise, I think I'll retire.
I'd like to show this proclamation that was signed by LaTourette at the time that Sally retired.
They had
Very impressive.
They had a Sally Stevens Day.
Oh, they
That's
did.
what the proclamation was.
Okay.
And that
was where was that held? Your retirement?
It was probably in a home student center, and they gave that to me about 2 weeks before I retired.
Okay.
I think it's December 15th, and I retired at the end of the year.
And at the time you retired, well, you might. I'm sorry, I interrupted, but did you have other events, other things?
They had a retirement reception, which is probably everybody that is there for a very long time usually has some kind of a reception. So President LaTourette thought, well, let's have Sally's retirement reception from 11 to 1. And then he thought people could come on their lunch hours. Well, by 11:30, they'd had so many people there that they didn't have any more food. And it was in the Sky Room at Home Student Center. So they went to the phones, there are phones up there, and they could call downstairs and ask them to open the freezer and bring up any food that looked like it could be reception food. The Home Student Center Food Service told me they thought there were 1,000 people that came to my reception, and it really was a lovely event. And it was at the end of December, and they had a receiving line upstairs of people that came. And one man came to me and he said, of course, everyone had to use the elevator to get to the 16th floor. And he said, oh, I have to tell you a story. There were 3 little boys down there, and they saw this long line that went from the elevator all the way out to the front door. And they came running up and they says, oh, this must be where we see Santa Claus, because there was such a long line. So it really was a beautiful occasion, though. And I had a photographer from the university took a picture of every guest that came with me. And then they printed those pictures, and I was able to send everybody a photograph of my retirement.
Did they give you an album too with the photos in there?
I don't think so.
Okay.
No, but they did give me a picture that I could share with all the friends. And we had not only university employees and administrators, but a lot of townspeople came.
Okay.
It was open to the public.
Okay. Now you had a lot of public interaction. In fact, I would think that you probably were the ambassador to the community, because as presidents came and went, they were so new to the community, they needed help in being introduced.
Well, one of the presidents said about me, said, if we ever took a picture of Northern Illinois University, Sally Stevens would be front row center. And that was a nice thing to hear a president say, because as they came into the office, I was the first one that any guest would meet.
Okay.
And so it was nice that they recognized it in that way.
Okay. Well, let's see. You retired and stayed. Well, no, I guess you had actually moved into Oak Retirement Center early.
I moved into Oakcrest in 1992.
Okay.
So I was living at a retirement facility and driving to work every day for 4 years.
For 4 years. Okay. You were the youngest person to ever move here.
Well, I guess I was. Okay. In fact, they took the minimum age out of their policy until I reached it. Okay. I guess the board came back, said, if she wants us, we want her.
Okay, and you've been in the same duplex home?
I have. I came to the groundbreaking when they were building the new duplexes on Roberts Lane and watched them dig the basement.
That's right. Let's talk about some of the things you've done since you retired, because we have a lot of memorabilia here, and also some of the things that have happened to your life and that you've been involved in.
Well, one thing is my church. I've been a member of Federated Church in Sycamore since I was probably high school age, and I've given a great deal to that. I was one of the things that will last forever is a stained glass window that I gave when we built our new church on West State Street in Sycamore. But prior to that, our church was located over on Elm and Salmonock, which is now, I believe, a Baptist church. But I sang in the church choir for 40 years, and I was on practically every committee or board that the church had, and so it's still very near and dear to my heart.
Let's talk about the book that was dedicated to you by Glenn Gildermeister.
Glenn Gildermeister collected all the information and the photos for this book, and he called me one day, and everybody on campus always thought I was the best proofreader that they could find. And so he asked if he could ask a favor of me. He said he'd written this book was ready for publication, and would I be willing to proofread it for him? I said, Glenn, I'd be happy to do that. So I went up to his office, and he gave me all the copy. And when I first opened the book, and the first page, this was while I was proofreading, he dedicated the book to me. And he says, this book is dedicated to Sally Stevens. In her long career at NIU and now in retirement, Sally's integrity, enthusiasm, hard work, generosity, and dedication have shown all of us what it takes to turn a dream into reality. The castle on the hill of 1899 became the extraordinary university Northern is today through the work of people like Sally. From the whole Northern family, Sally, thank you.
That's a wonderful tribute. I'm glad you shared that.
Well, it's I wish there were more books available now, but I understand it's out of print, and I don't think they're going to reprint it, but I'm glad I have one for my memory anyway.
Now, speaking of proofreading, you became an editor when you moved to Oakcrest, or sometime after you moved to
Well,
Oakcrest.
somebody has to do something in their retirement, and I decided to, well, I wasn't the one that decided to do this. Some of you will remember Paul Street, who was a retired professor from NIU, and he was the editor of a campus newspaper at Oakcrest. And one day I was in Oakcrest, and I saw Paul at a table trying to shuffle all these papers together and get the paper ready to be printed. So I thought he looked a little confused, and I said, "Paul, would you like a little help?" And he told me what he was trying to do, and I sat down, and in 5 minutes I had it done for him. And then about 2 months later, the same thing happened. I saw him again. So I said, "Oh, looks like you're looking for some more help." So I sat down and finished it up for him. And then he went to the health center. His health was really failing. And he said to Joanne Lawner that he didn't think he could do the paper anymore. But he said, "If you ask Sally Stevens, I think she'll be able to do it." So it was Paul's suggestion, and I am in my 16th year of doing a paper that comes out every other month at Oakcrest. And the shortest issue has been 20 pages, and the longest issue has been 36 pages. So it is kind of like a little magazine that comes out every other month.
And you write about 80% of it, too.
Well, I ask people at Oakcrest to write an article, and their response is, "Well, Sally, you write better than I do," so they'd like to have me write it. So that means interviewing people and getting the information, writing the article, getting it in the computer, and getting it ready. So
I'd like to spend a little time on your activities in connection with Northern and your tremendous support for the institution. I'll just show this one photo of the Husky mascot that you've donated.
Well, you remember when they started the campaign after all the students were, we had that tragedy on campus, and people bought a dog and commissioned an artist to paint it, and of course I did that. My dog I knew just exactly how I wanted it painted, so I told the artist I wanted it all red with black and white paw prints all over the dog. And while she was painting it, Charlotte Rollman was the artist I got to paint it. And every time I went to her studio in the summer to see it, I always wore gold shoes in the summer. Then I didn't have to change from white to red to navy to beige. I always wore gold shoes. And she says, "Sally, I'd like to put gold shoes on the dog." So my husky dog was called Husky Paws and ended up with gold shoes. And I didn't want her to do that, but it was kind of fun because everybody that recognized it said, "Oh, that has to be Sally's dog."
Where did it end up?
Well, I have given it back to the university. So right now it's in the ticket lobby of the Convocation Center.
Okay.
And there's everybody that had a dog also had a puppy, and the puppy sits on the information counter at the Convocation Center. So they're both there.
Let's talk about your tremendous enthusiasm for NIU Huskies.
Well, this was one of the honors that came for me. I was named by the athletic department as a Husky legend. So I had to go out on the football field, and they presented me with a football. So Husky athletics are still pretty important in my lifestyle today. I go to all the home games. I've gone to a lot of other away games where they've been championship or whatever. But I go to all the home games in football and men's and women's basketball.
And tell us about some of the buildings that you have played a role in
Well,
funding and donating to.
I have given money to it's the secretary's office in the Jordan Center, and they thought that was an appropriate one for me because I was a secretary, and this is the room it's a huge room. It houses 2 secretaries, and so I helped with that. And then when the Chesapeake Indoor Practice Center came, I did a similar amount for that one. And probably the one that is nearest and dearest to my heart, however, is the Barcema Alumni and Visitor Center. And I was really always in favor of that kind of a building on campus because so much of the things that I did for the university were planning university events. And I thought we really needed an appropriate building to do that. So I have a 3-room conference suite in that building that is named the Sally Stevens Conference Suite. And the large donors for that building all have their names in the floor in the lobby of the building. And that's when this happened. This was posters that they had for every large donor. Mm-hmm.
Now, you've done philanthropy in the community as well and contributed to a lot of things, even outside of Northern.
Well, yes, I guess I have.
I forgot the scholarship, too.
Well, at the scholarships, when I retired from Northern, I decided I wanted to do a scholarship for students in Visual and Performing Arts College. And I thought, even though I went to more music things at the university, I could, since there's 3 schools in that college, I thought, well, I have to do all 3 schools. So I endowed a scholarship in music, in art, and in theater and dance. And I did that as soon as I retired. So there are 3 scholarships awarded every year, and that will go on forever because they're endowed. And I've been retired since 1996, so there's over 50 students have scholarships in my name already.
And you've met most of them.
And I have met most of them, not all of them, but I've had letters of thank you from everybody. But that really is something I'm very proud of.
I was going to show a few things that, of course, the Outstanding Philanthropist of 2004 with your name on that. And then we have the Key Leader Award from, Kishwaukee Family YMCA. You were part of that board as well, right?
I was on that board for 10 years.
Okay.
And then decided that maybe it was time for someone younger and one who was able to bring out some more new things for the Y.
Okay.
So I retired from that board after 10 years of serving.
Okay. And then for some of your other work in DeKalb County, you were honored by being named a Tribute to a Hero Award in 2006, in Tribute to Heroes.
And that's a Boy Scouts of America. And that was a wonderful organization. And after I was named to be the recipient of the award, I served on that board for about, maybe 8 years.
Mm-hmm. And then the last one here I was going to bring up is the Hall of Fame from the Chamber of Commerce, which is the most recent one in 2015.
That was a great surprise to me. I guess since I went through schools in Sycamore, I probably thought of myself as really more of a Sycamore person. But people in DeKalb in the Chamber of Commerce realized some of the things I'd done, and that was really a great honor to have that. And that's more recent. That was in 2015.
Yes, yes. Now let's talk about your activities. You've been either president or on the board of or active in many of the
Well, I've been
organizations.
a member of the Sycamore Women's Club for about 20 years, and I've served on their board. And every year they do a memorial service for those that have passed that were members, and I do all of those programs. And I've been a member of the University Women's Club since 1996 and held offices there. And then I guess we mentioned the YMCA. And I've been on fundraising committees for the Egyptian Theater, and these were women in the community who felt that the Egyptian Theater was worthy of maintaining and keeping up, and we raised the money for all the new seats in the Egyptian Theater. And then when our group finished that, we took over the DeKalb Public Library, and we worked on a fundraising committee for that new addition.
And what about the elevator?
Well, that was a personal donation. I gave the money myself for one of the elevators in the new library. So those are some of the things I've done that have helped in the community.
What about the 100 women's groups, fairly new?
Oh, we have a new committee or organization that I read about in a Women's Day magazine, and Mary Beth Van Buren, who's also in DeKalb, saw it on television. And so we pursued that group. It's called 100 Plus Women Who Care. And we drove into Elmhurst. They had a chapter already and found out more about it. And we brought the idea. It's actually nationwide, but also international. There are some chapters in Mexico and Canada that we know of. And we decided to bring the chapter out here and try it. And already we have about 120 members. And the commitment is to give $100 4 times a year to a local organization that the whole group votes on as the one for that quarter. So you don't have to go to the meetings, but you have to be committed to write your check that the group votes to donate the money to. So the last quarterly meeting that we had, I think we gave $12,200 to one organization in DeKalb County. It happened to be 4Cs, the Children's Caring Group. But we've been going for about a year and a half, and as the membership increases, so does the money.
Now you've got other clubs and organizations, anything from the Whist Club to...
Well, I like to play bridge, and Barry, you're always interested in whist, because whist is the forebearer of regular bridge that everybody plays, and it was supposedly started by Annie Glidden, and the women gave money, and that amount that they gave went to buy books at the DeKalb Public Library.
The first large number.
So that's been going on for a long time, and I am not a member now, but I substitute often in that group too. My lifestyle is a little busy to keep going to a lot of bridge clubs, but it's a really fine group.
And you've done a lot of travel since you've retired as well.
Yes, I have. I'm slowing down a little now, but I have done a lot of travel. I think there are only two places that might have been on my wish list that I haven't gone to, and that I wanted to see the Taj Mahal in India, but I don't think I want to go to India now. And the other place that I thought I always wanted to go to and haven't is Iceland. So those two places might be in my bucket list, but I probably won't go to either one.
Do you have any other bucket list items that
I don't think so.
done so much?
I'm happy with my life. I've enjoyed everything I've done, and I think I've done some good things, not only for myself, but for those around me. And I enjoyed DeKalb County and Sycamore and DeKalb especially, and my new home of Oak Crest of 24 years. One thing, while I was at the university, the international fraternity called Phi Beta Delta, it's an honorary society for international students. I had done enough good things for those students that they inducted me into their fraternity too.
Okay.
So that's kind of nice.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Sally. It's been a wonderful time with you, and learned so much about the university and your life, and I really appreciate your sharing that.
Thank you. It was nice to be asked. Thank you very much.